Harry spending a lot of time at a hotel in Montecito. What does this tell us perhaps about the state of Harry and Meghan's relationship? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about this article from the Telegraph, which is published on the 5-year anniversary of their marriage. And as it turns out, things don't seem to be going swimmingly behind the scenes. There's a lot of talk that Harry apparently spends a lot of time at a hotel, so much so that the hotel proprietor knows who he is, knows what room he likes. And then we also heard that he stays up well into the night playing video games. And as a father too, I don't think that's the best use of his time. And then it just seems like Harry and Meghan are definitely on a different trajectory and very much in a sense on the timeline that I always gave them. I said that their marriage will last about 5 years. And the reason I said that is they have nothing in common. And at some point as a couple, you have to have something in common. The problem is Harry changed everything about himself in order to please Meghan. And even though he's changed all these things about himself, the things he does and everything, at some point, if this is an artificial transformation in order to please someone, at some point you're gonna start drifting back to your base personality because this wasn't a real change for Harry. He did this in order to keep Meghan Markle, but as it turns out, maybe either she doesn't want to keep him or he's getting to the point in the relationship where he's going, you know what? I'm just really not feeling this anymore. And so we're going to talk about this today, what this means, and another update about the crazy fallout of their disastrous attempt to look like the victims and play the Diana card. It is going so poorly for them on this front. So unbelievably badly. It is really quite incredible thing to watch. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip as well. In addition, I will be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing about history, so if you guys want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. It has been crazy town in the royal sphere right now with all this Harry and Meghan stuff. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely insane. So we will be keeping up with this and so many other royal things. I feel like my schedule has been just so jammed packed for the last several months. I had all these plans when I went full time of all the stuff I wanted to do. And I will get there, but I'm just catching up. My sister's getting married later this year, so we're having a bridesmaids weekend this weekend. Then I'm flying out to lead a couple of you guys on a tour around London and the Cotswolds. So I just feel like my brain is exploding with all the things that I just moved to. So I have a new studio room I need to all set up and stuff's everywhere. So you guys will have to forgive me. Things have just been so much more crazier than I anticipated. So guys, but I so appreciate you guys hanging in there, and I just love all of you subscribers, and I'm so glad you guys are on this journey with me because this is crazy. I used to watch royals. I've watched royals for about 10 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Harry and Meghan are in a class of their own, a class, I hate to say, of kind of crazy town. And that's why I feel like the royals ignore them. I forgot to mention this yesterday, but sometimes you just ignore the crazy person screaming in the corner, and that's where the royal family is right now. They're like, we'll just let them do their thing over there. Just be over there having a difficult time, and we'll just be over here. And when you're ready for us to actually have an adult discussion, we can do that, but not quite yet. And just to wrap this up as well, I also have a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire, which yes, I know I'm behind on, but we will get that together. We also have a fashion channel, and I'm going to do after this video an unboxing of something I got like a couple weeks ago because I was super excited about it. It's a little clutch from a brand that Kate has, and actually Zara Phillips utilized one of their clutches for the coronation. So I ordered it on sale and I can't wait to share it with you guys. And then I also have a upcoming trip to Germany and Austria. So we're going to London with a group of people. And so that'll all be fun because we'll get to go to all these amazing sites connected with British history. I also have a trip to Germany and Austria where we'll get to go to places connected with German and Austrian history and all the amazing royal families. There's the emperors and empresses, kings and queens, princes and princesses. So if you guys are interested in checking that out with me, feel free to follow the link down below. And before we get to Harry and Meghan, we do have Prince William. He was part of a rowing team. So this has been Mental Health Awareness Week, and apparently there is a video coming, and William is part of a rowing team. So it'll be interesting to see what this all represents. And it explains to me a bit why Catherine's recent visit to Anna Freud wasn't really covered the way her initial visit over to a different organization was earlier this week, because it looks like that great film team that they have was currently with William in that setup. And before we get to this Telegraph report, there's another report from page 6. And as it turns out, perhaps, Harry and Meghan were staying at a friend's house because they were too stinking cheap to put up for a room at the Carlisle. So apparently, Harry and Meghan wanted a discount at the Carlisle. It's a hotel that Princess Diana used to stay at. And so the couple demanded this, much like they demanded the footage from Backgrid of their supposed paparazzi chase. And when Backgrid said no, so did the Carlisle. The Carlisle was like, yeah, no, you guys don't get that. And it feels so influencery for them to even ask that. It feels so influencery. But the Meghan still has not left the influencer sphere. So she's demanding or asking, well, we need a discount. And the Carlisle was like, well, no, why? You guys had the money. You guys made apparently $100 million for Netflix. $20-30 million from his book, another several million from Spotify. Why do you need a discount? And because apparently they are cheapskates, or maybe don't have as much money as we thought, although I don't quite believe that unless they really are absolutely draining money through security and various other expenses, is that they decided to stay with a friend instead. And there was this kind of epic burn from somebody at the NYPD. A source said they should have gotten a hotel for the safety of everyone. Instead, they were cheap and wanted a free place to stay. Oh my gosh, the burns just keep coming, because Harry and Meghan, their whole paparazzi chase fiasco is just cratering them. This was such a stupid move on their part. And then they doubled down on stupid by making outrageous demands of Backgrid. And Backgrid slaps back and goes, yeah, we'll go with our founding fathers and tell you no, because you're not king, and we kicked out our kings a long time ago. Harry and Meghan, the hubris is huge, but there could be something really serious underlining it, which is perhaps the breakdown of their marriage. I don't relish in that, because a breakdown for a marriage, especially when children are involved, is a terrible thing. However, I think it's also a great thing for us as a public to recognize is that relationships built on a foundation of sand will crumble at some point, and probably crumble faster than a lot of others. The reason I say their marriage is based on sand is that as a couple, as two individual people, adult people, they had nothing in common except for Meghan's obsession with herself and Harry's obsession with her. That's not a foundation for a good relationship. That's just not. And if they were both adults, particularly Meghan, because she's a bit older and she's, you could say, more worldly in a lot of ways, should have recognized that Harry's obsession with her would not be good. But of course, Meghan is a narcissist. She loved his obsession with her. And that really did fuel so much of their relationship. Harry changed everything about himself to please her and her lifestyle. So he stopped drinking quite as much. So maybe he drinks wine now instead of beer like he used to. He doesn't do drugs instead of the hallucinogenics that make him see his mother. He stopped hunting. He stopped hanging out with all his British friends. He left his country. He left his family. He left his job. He left literally everything about his life and gave it to Meghan Markle. And when you do something like that, unless it's a true conversion experience, people who get out of drug use, people who have a religious conversion and who decide for themselves to really make a change and stick with it, and they are somebody who it really does transform their lives, yes, sure, you can go that route and you can change your life. However, Harry's change was artificial. Harry changed not to please himself, but to please her. And because of that, when they kind of went simpatico, because they were both over here, let's say this is Meghan, this is Harry. Harry went all the way over here to please Meghan. He started the vegan lifestyle, he did yoga, all sorts of things, meditation, all the bull crap that she likes. But as time goes on, he eventually will revert back to his initial stage somewhat. Now, maybe it's not all the way over where it was, but it will be at some point. He will revert. And the reason is because it wasn't a real change. She forced him to change because she made outrageous demands on him. I think she manipulated him a lot. And because of all this, he has changed. But it's not in a good way. It's not in a fulfilled way. I think the guy still remains so stinking tense because he's so worried he will offend her, that she'll leave, that she'll say this and that. He has done everything in order to please her, and she's never satisfied. Meghan Markle is somebody who demands the world, and once she gets that, she demands Mars. So she will never be happy and fulfilled. And because of that, he is constantly trying to please her. And the stress of that will crack. It will crack because it can't not. This is not a healthy relationship. This is not a healthy dynamic. I don't care really what anybody says, 99.9% of the time, a person who gives up everything about their life for a relationship is not in a healthy relationship. Because as we've seen, the royal family is close. They're loving. They would have embraced Meghan, but Meghan didn't want to be embraced. It's actually kind of interesting. Somebody reposted an older story about Sophie Winkleman. She married Lord Frederick Windsor, and she was in this horrific car crash. She said she could feel like elements of her spine moving. She couldn't feel her legs for a couple of days. This was a very, very severe, nearly deadly crash. And she was in physical therapy and all these sorts of things. And they tried to keep the children occupied. She was in the hospital for weeks. And the royal family stepped up. Sophie Wessex went to meet her. And now Sophie Edinburgh, she went to meet her. She got a call from William and Catherine. William called the hospital, told them that she was his cousin, even though she's only his cousin by marriage, that she's his cousin, so please take good care of her. Prince Charles at that time, now he's king, had his chef make their lunches and dinners so Frederick didn't have to worry about that while she was recovering, and they could have good meals. She actually said that she thought her kids' cholesterol would skyrocket if Freddie was in charge of it. And so that's a really beautiful thing to see as a family, is somebody going, okay, so a family member is injured, a family member is hurt. We surround them. I think genuinely the royal family, because their relationships must be based on an obscene level of trust because of their positions, are actually quite close. Meghan is the one who decided not to be close. Meghan is the one who decided to be decisive because she is divisive in every relationship we have. We've seen this in her own family. We've seen it in the royal family. We've seen it with her friends. Meghan Markle is somebody who is obsessed with herself. And because of that, she only thinks about herself. She only thinks of her own ambitions. She cares little for Harry. We've seen this again, I think, when they arrived for this awards ceremony recently as the Ms. Foundation. Meghan walked in first. Again, Harry in a lot of situations, now granted they're no longer on royal engagements, but he should have always walked ahead of her. And then she goes and makes sure her mom's coming. And then she doesn't even look at him. She doesn't look at him. And when it comes to his family, she doesn't respect them at all. And she didn't respect him in his position because she would always barge ahead of him to introduce herself to people. And Harry liked, I think, that forthrightness, but at the same time, she was showing him an immense level of disrespect by not respecting the institution he's a part of. Regardless of your view on feminism and all those sorts of things, when it comes to royals, the blood royal usually greets people first. Now, after a period of time, yes, they're a little bit more loose about this. We've seen this with Catherine and William. But if you watch Catherine during the initial years of their marriage, she was very, very strict about making sure William greeted people first. William went first. William led the way because he is the blood royal. And that shows respect for your husband and his family. But Meghan doesn't respect him at all. And we've actually not seen her with her engagement ring in quite a while. I can remember the last time we've seen it. Some people have pointed out it was at least since they went to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee that we have not seen that ring. And we noticed it very specifically at the Ms. Awards. I thought at first initially when we saw some of the paparazzi pictures of them walking that Meghan, perhaps the stones were turned around on the ring. And I was like, well, that happens. But at the Ms. Foundation, you could see her hand very, very clearly. It wasn't a paparazzi picture. It was a very clear shot. And that ring was not there. It was her eternity band and her wedding ring. But yet, some people are like, well, maybe she decided to leave her expensive rings at home. But on her other hand, she wore this massive, pretentious, oh, it's so pretentious. I despise pinky rings. I'm sorry, I just do. She wore this massive multi-carat pinky ring that she got from the Saudis, one of her blood diamonds. And so she put it on there. So she's wearing, let's say, a 3-carat, it's a big diamond, on her pinky finger, yet she won't wear her engagement ring with Diana stones. And I posited at the time, and I still think this could technically be true, but I'm pulling away from it a bit, that she's not wearing it anymore either because she's upgrading the stone, which I think is totally possible. Or like somebody else said on Twitter when I mentioned this, is that when your relationship isn't going well, that engagement ring is a reminder of it. And so because it's almost more flashier than your other ring, so perhaps she's not wearing it because the marriage is not going well. And she doesn't want to look at that. She doesn't want to remind herself that she anchored herself to Harry. And although he's given her everything she's wanted, he's not that bright. They're struggling, I think, a lot. And so she's like, you know what? I don't even want to look at this because, who cares? Let me make sure though I get those Diana stones out so I can keep them. So, or she could be upgrading the stone, who knows? But if it has been missing for the last 6 or 7, 8 months, that's a really, really huge warning sign, I think. And the Telegraph confirms this. Again, I only ever gave them 5 years. And apparently at this 5-year mark, they try to frame it subtly and failing at the same time intentionally to frame this as, well, you know, they've been married 5 years, they have 2 kids under 4, life is hard. But I don't think most married men with 2 kids under 4 generally go to a hotel to spend the night so often that the hotel owner knows who he is, knows what room he goes to. Most men, I would hope, with 2 children under 4 don't spend all night gaming. This does not sound like a relationship in a healthy place. Now, I will say, obviously, this is all reports. You could take it as a grain of salt if you want to, but I will say it's not the Daily Mail, it's not the Daily Express, which I would say are maybe slightly lower tier. I feel like the Daily Telegraph is a very reputable source. Do they get everything right? No, of course not. Nobody does. But the Times of London, I would say, is ranked slightly higher, but I found everything in the Telegraph to be pretty good. So I tend to think that this report is actually pretty true. So let's get into it. And this is the title, by the way, as well. The Sussexes are frazzled, fraught, and lacking romance, like any couple with young kids. No, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. So this is from Camilla Tominley. She says, it's hard to believe that 5 years ago, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle rode through the streets of Windsor in an Ascot Landau carriage, cheered by adoring crowds on their wedding. At the time, household staff were entirely confident the relationship would go the distance. Quote, no one could see it lasting longer than 3 years. I always said 5. Yet, as a couple celebrate their wood anniversary, Harry and Meghan have proved doubters wrong. Are we so sure about that, though? While their relationships with their own families might not be what they once were, which is a huge warning sign, the marriage appears to be going strong despite the couple's outwardly diverging priorities. Yeah, no. Again, this very subtly trying to portray them as in a good spot, yet not a good spot, is just like this very weird dance that they're doing here. The Duchess once described them as moving together like salt and pepper, but they seem to be heading in opposite directions. Does that sound very good? Meghan looking forward while Harry dwells on the past. The extraordinary events of this week, with the couple claiming that they had been involved in a near catastrophic car chase at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi in New York, seemed to expose the chasm between her desire for fame and Harry's quest for privacy. Amid much talk of Meghaissance, Meghan, 41, initially appeared to bathe in the flashbulbs as she made her first official public appearance since the coronation at the Women of Vision Awards, which was a total bomb. Nobody of prominence came. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks that she can say much about anything. She came across to most as vain and vapid, and everybody was waiting for her to finish so they could all leave or get back to their dinner or whatever. Dressed in a $1,500 gold Joanna Ortiz dress and $1,000 Tom Ford stilettos and a matching $900 Carolina Herrera bag, she collected her award. She told those present, "You can be the visionary of your own life. There's a dummy born every minute. Go find yours. Maybe he'll be a prince." That's what I think Meghan's vision for life is, because she's not a feminist. She's not an activist. She is just a mouthpiece. She just talks and spouts nonsensical word salad and then expects everybody to applaud like trained seals. That's Meghan Markle. The couple say that after the event, they were subjected to a 2-hour relentless pursuit by a gang of at least 6 paparazzi. New York City authorities have stated that although the photographers made their journey challenging, there were no reported collisions, summonses, injuries, or arrests. In pictures of the couple leaving the event, Harry's discomfort was etched on his face as he used his phone to film the action from the car's back seat. Yes, I think Harry was uncomfortable. Of course he was. This does remind him of something very, very tragic in his life. But this is the life Meghan Markle wanted Harry. This is the life she's always wanted. She doesn't care about you and your thoughts and your childhood and the traumas that acquires. That was for her to manipulate and use. This is what she wanted, is to be relentlessly chased by the paparazzi, but then she has to act like she doesn't, but she clearly loves it. The Duke is already trying to reform the British press in his late mother's memory, describing it as his life's work in an interview with ITV's Tom Bradby in January. He's currently waging 4 separate legal battles against 3 different newspaper groups over illegal information gathering, phone hacking, and a story he claims to be libelous. He is also suing the Home Office over their removal of taxpayer-funded security and the Metropolitan Police's refusal to allow him to pay for close personal protection while in the UK. The events of this week raise questions over whether the couple will extend their campaign for privacy to the US. They may wish to team up with other high-profile figures, such as the Clooneys, who don't seem to be publicly associating with them at all and went to the Prince's Trust Award in London. So yeah, I don't think that relationship is going very well. Who attended their London wedding 5 years ago. George Clooney, whose life on Mall as a human rights lawyer, has spoken about these issues before, writing an open letter after photos of their daughter were published online. However, questions have been raised over how such a campaign sits with the Duchess's plan to build her global enterprise. Meghan signed with leading global talent agency WME in April amid talk of more content creation, a Dior clothing deal, and the revamp of her defunct lifestyle blog, The Tig. Given this potential conflict, it is little wonder then that the couple have cut quite separate figures lately, with Harry traveling alone to the coronation on May 6th, leaving Meghan in Montecito with their 2 children, Archie, who turned 4 that day, and Lilibet, who turns 2 next month. The last time the Sussexes were photographed together in public was at a basketball game in Los Angeles last month, when they missed the opportunity to smooch on the kiss cam that pans in on couples in the stands. Some took the normally tactile couple's reluctance as a sign that they may not be all well between them after Meghan's absence from Harry's promotional deal fueled split rumors. In addition to that, obviously, we did have the WME announcement the next day where Harry wasn't a part of it. There are serious questions. What is Harry doing the next couple of months? No idea. No idea. It appears that everything is going swimmingly for Meghan in terms of all her deals and promotion, perhaps, but not as much for Harry. Though he does have a deal with Dior, apparently, but I still think Beatrice Borromeo and Pierre Katsaragi are much better representatives of Dior. They're much classier. Such is their independence from each other that the owner of a leading hotel chain in Montecito recently told the Daily Telegraph they have a room set aside for Harry where he occasionally stays on his own. I wonder why. That is weird. The Duke has also been known to stay at the uber-exclusive San Vicente Bungalows when visiting LA, which is a 2-hour drive from the couple's $11 million mansion. Most men don't spend. If they need to spend a night at a hotel, don't drive 2 hours away to do so. No. This seems to be his escape place, said a source of the super secretive and selective members club in West Hollywood, which, unlike the Soho House chain also frequented by the Sussexes, bans journalists from joining. A refuge from the rigors of parenting 2 children under 4, Harry has apparently stayed there after attending Barry's boot camp, a high-octane cardio fitness class at the nearby Beverly Center. One friend described the couple as like any parents of young kids, frazzled. But most parents don't live, especially in a $14 million mansion, don't stay at different places when they don't have to. And why is Harry going to a workout class 2 hours away from his home? That doesn't seem very responsible. Like, why is he doing that? That's just weird. Yes, perhaps it's better, but your family's in Montecito. Shouldn't you be building your life there? Why are you going to Los Angeles? It doesn't make a lot of sense. They added they are really happy together, although Harry stays at hotels, and live this idyllic life in Montecito, which is essentially a giant gated community for multimillionaires. By the end of the day, they've been through a lot, and I think they both feel quite ground down by it all. They're like any married couple, 5 years in, but they're living separate lives. Like, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. They should not be living separate lives just 5 years in. And the idea that Harry is staying in separate locations and that they're growing apart is not good, because they told us they're like salt and pepper. Here's the thing: when you're very tactile in your relationship and you tell us you're like salt and pepper, and all of a sudden salt is over here and pepper's on the other side of the table, people wonder what the heck is going on, because that doesn't sound good. Yes, you need to grow, but then it signals as well that your relationship to begin with was juvenile. As a Californian born and bred, Meghan appears more settled than Harry, who by his own admission still feels torn by his British ties. As he wrote in his book, "I love my mother country and I love my family and I always will." I mean, he doesn't show it very well. Although he has repeatedly spoken of embracing the Santa Barbara lifestyle, it is no secret that the Duke, cut off from his family and many of his friends, is still heavily reliant on his wife's social circle. And that is an element of control as well. Harry doesn't have his own friends anymore. He has Meghan's friends. So what happened to Harry's friends? Harry should have his own friends, especially because he was adult when he got married, like he was in his mid-30s or closing in. He should have his own friends that he hangs out with, just like Meghan. But Meghan's allowed to have her friends, but he's not allowed to have his friends. When they first started dating, Harry was Meghan's protector, guiding her through royal life that was alien to her, but now the roles have been reversed, and it is the Duke who appears to be struggling to find his way. I don't entirely buy that. Meghan really did wear the pants even when they were royals, because he did things he knew were wrong as a royal in terms of protocol that he did not follow. That may explain why he is partially on British time, apparently staying up into the night gaming. Given Harry's age, given his responsibility as an adult with 2 children, I don't think gaming until the wee hours of the night is probably the best use of your time. But what this screams to me is that they're not in a good place. A guy who's in a healthy, loving dynamic does not spend all of his night gaming, especially if he could be with his wife, hanging out with his kids, something like that. Yet with many of his old sets still feeling aggrieved at essentially been ghosted after he married Meghan, patience appears to be wearing thin even amongst his most stalwart supporters. As one insider explained, nobody really speaks to him anymore, and even the people who have remained by his side have lately begun to fall away because he's so consistently negative. He's often complaining and really after others had stuck with him because they blamed Meghan for isolating him and cutting him off from his friends and family. But he hasn't done anything to help himself. Now they just see him as completely lost. That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound healthy. That doesn't sound like Harry's in a good place at all. And the only person to blame is Meghan Markle. Harry is still referred to the fact that William regards him as deluded, but that sentiment also seems to be shared with those he once referred to as his circle of trust. The word narcissistic also creeps in to a lot of conversations about the couple. Again, none of this sounds good. Narcissistic and deluded. Those are not good adjectives for a couple in a healthy dynamic. According to one former military colleague, no one in the forces has got any time for him at all, which is such a shame because he was hugely popular. You can blame Meghan, but he's brought a lot of it on himself. Now, I think there can be 2 things going on here. Yes, Harry is a cad. He's been awful to a lot of people. But also, I think Meghan winds him up. Meghan has kind of gotten into Harry and twisted him up so much that he's become this kind of nasty, negative side of himself. So he's flipped from the fun, lad guy to this really negative, nasty person. But that's because, in part, he's had to change everything to please her, yet she's never pleased. So he's constantly adjusting to please her, and it's not going anywhere. And he's starting to freak out because he doesn't know what to do anymore. He literally has no idea what to do. While fully supportive of Spare, the media savvy Duchess let it be known that she raised gentle concerns about whether it was the right move. As a source said at the time, is this the way she would have approached things? Possibly not. But she will always back him and would never have gotten involved in promoting such a personal project. This was about his own life, his own journey, and his own perspective. And it also let him fall flat on his face without any support from her. Because we've noticed as well that she is more than willing to throw him to the wolves. It means that she gets away and doesn't have to deal with the fallout. This came from the book. This came from the coronation. She let him go to the coronation by himself, knowing that perhaps he's emotionally vulnerable, to let him face the crowd, and didn't support him in any ways. Again, it's kind of unconscionable for a couple who's supposed to be deeply in love and married. But But with such speculation about plans for her own memoir, the Duchess will want to avoid any more negative publicity diminishing the Archewell brand after the couple's approval ratings have fallen to near Duke of York levels. This is all about Meghan, Meghan's brand, Meghan's vision. Everything is about Meghan. She could care less about Harry. If he tarnishes his own brand, she's just going to let him go to the wolves and feed him to them herself. She will let him collapse because it's all about brand Archewell. All about brand Meghan. It's all an artifice for Meghan. And also still, like, from a marketing perspective, Archewell is a horrendously awful name. It is. If her relaunch doesn't go to plan, which it's not because it's crashed and burned, however, a blame game is likely to follow. And as someone who once worked for the couple noted, when you're that angry with the world, it leaves little time for romance. That is so enlightening. They are angry at the world, particularly Harry. I think Harry's angry at the world because he has done everything he can. He followed all her rules. He followed all her guidelines. Yet it's never enough. And when something like that happens, you do become angry and embittered because you can't figure out how to change things. The simple thing would be just to divorce and move on. Again, that is sad, I think, from a family perspective, but for Harry's own health, that might actually be the best way to go. I hate to say that because I just don't think that's good for the kids, but this doesn't sound like a healthy dynamic. And another thing to consider, at least when it came to the car chase, is that I wondered if part of the reason why they were leading the paparazzi on this massive chase is because they were actually staying at separate locations. What if the reason they didn't want the paparazzi to know where they were going is because they would see Meghan and her mom dropped off at one location and Harry dropped off at another? I think that would be very, very interesting. There is obviously, I think, something breaking down here. And it's very sad because there are children involved. But I think it's all good for everyone to know and remember that when you're in a relationship is based both on mutual trust and mutual interest. When you don't have an interest in common, what happens is those small details, yes, you can change yourself for a while, but at the end of the day, if you don't like going on the same trips, if you don't like doing the same things, if you have completely different interests in so many different ways, and one partner conforms to one's interests and you don't find ones together, at some point, you're going to go down different paths and divorce is probably in your future. And I think that's what's happening perhaps with Harry and Meghan. Maybe they'll make it to the 7-year mark, but it sounds like already they're living separate lives. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.